Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman of Behind the Steel Curtain, and we are back for another episode of the Post-Game Show. The Steelers lose 37-30 to the Cincinnati Bengals at home, Acrisure Stadium in Week 11. There's a lot to talk about this game, a crazy first half, crazy second quarter for the Steelers, and then a really, really bad second half. But bringing the triumphant trio together, as always, Bryan Davis. What's up, Bryan?
Hey, I feel teased.
Not the good kind of teased either.
No.
Dave Schofield, what's up, Dave?
Oh, not much. It's much better watching games at the stadium than it is on my couch.
Well, when they win the game.
Especially when they win.
Sure. The Steelers had more than one opportunity to win this game, and it's just a shame that it never really worked out. They couldn't get out of their own way at times. We're going to talk about all that. But as we always start off every single show, every single post-game show, it's knee-jerk reaction. So, Bryan, outside of the tease factor, what's your knee-jerk reaction to this loss?
Knee-jerk reaction is that the offense is not ready for prime time, that they cannot overcome injuries, and the defense, I don't care who's there. I don't care if you have your superstar there. Poor performance.
Yeah, Dave, knee-jerk reaction.
The Cincinnati Bengals are a much better team than what the Steelers faced last week. The Steelers, until garbage time when they were down 2 touchdowns, had done to them in the second half what their defense managed to do to the Saints in the second half last week. It was done to them. And yet they were still in it in the fourth quarter until some things – you just go back and there's a few plays in there and you're like, wow, if you could just make a difference here versus here. And it's just huge. Untimely penalties coming at the worst time. It was not, they were the team playing a team coming off their bye that was probably a little bit sharper. I mean, they even won the turnover battle.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that the offense, although I was really excited at halftime, but it just goes to show that they still are a work in progress even this far into the season.
Yeah, this is a game where I'm figuring out my winners and losers, not only for the article for the website, but also for my podcast tomorrow on Let's Ride. And I have a lot of players that I thought played pretty well, and I'm struggling to find specific players. I haven't looked at team stats or anything like that yet for players or areas of the team that didn't do well. This is a weird game. This is a very strange game when you look at the two halves, but we'll talk about all that. Let's get some super chats up here. Wilson Pava, he gives us $4.99. Thank you very much. He said first half Steelers could compete for the playoffs. First half Steelers.
I think he meant second half for the second one.
Oh, second half Steelers could compete for first overall. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Lots of promise, but also lots of issues. That's a good way of putting it. If that change is correct, the second half Steelers could compete for the first overall pick. That's the truth. In the first half, we saw an offense that looked competent. We saw an offense that was able to move the ball, a defense that, although they struggled at times in certain areas, were able to make plays. And then the second half, well, we all saw it. It was bad. It was really bad. Go, Bryan.
You know what, Jeff? Dave could just hit the music on that one. Let's hit the music and get out of here.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And Tyler W gives us $2. Thank you, Tyler. He said tale of two halves. Steelers now have the 8th overall pick. And for those counting at home, the Chicago Bears lose to the Atlanta Falcons, which helps their cause at that second round pick. So if you're someone that's already looking ahead, which once the Steelers got the second round pick, I've been keeping an eye on what the Bears do for sure, but not looking too far ahead with the Steelers pick just yet. Too early for me. Before we get started with the offense defense, let's talk about some injuries that definitely did have an impact on the game in and of itself. Jaylen Warren, who played in the first quarter and left with a hamstring injury, he was not able to return. Mason Cole, he was dealing with Mike Tomlin called it a mid-foot injury. That's scary for a lot of reasons. He said he needs to be evaluated. And Miles Boykin, who typically is just your special teams gunner, but still a very important part of those teams, he had an oblique injury and was not able to return. So those were the 3 injuries that the Steelers are now dealing with. Mason Cole, that's a big injury. Jaylen Warren, big injury. There you go. So let's get this thing started. We'll talk about those injuries as we go throughout the the breakdown. Let's start on offense as we always do. And let's start with the quarterback position. Kenneth Shane Pickett, KP8. He does 25 of 42, 265 yards passing, 6.3 average. He did throw a touchdown pass to George Pickens. He was sacked twice with a rating of 85.9. I'm going to say that, honestly, I really hate bringing up the quarterback with any part of social media or any fan base, because it is so polarizing right now between the people that hate Kenny Pickett, the people that love Kenny Pickett, and not a lot in between. So, but Brian, if you were just looking at this performance, we're not doing grades this week. What did you think of Kenny Pickett's performance, Brian?
Not good enough. Signs of light, there's stuff there. I mean, there's a good quarterback. I can't wait for year 2 at this point, because I think he has something, but it just was not good tonight. We'll get to other things that made him not good, because he had help for sucking tonight. So when I say he had help, yeah, the offensive line didn't help him. Okay,
Dave, what were your thoughts on Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, it's just like everything else that was said before. It was a tale of two halves for Kenny Pickett. I mean, in the first half, he was 14 of 19, a touchdown, 141 yards, 112 passer rating. But in the second half, he was 11 of 23, 124 yards, a 64.4 passer rating. He did not turn the ball over. So that's 2 straight games with the Steelers not having a turnover. So that helped keep the game at least in range into the fourth quarter. But ultimately, it was the inefficiency in the third quarter and the first part of the fourth quarter that ultimately doomed this game. Whether that was all on Kenny Pickett is very debatable. I don't think he was. I mean, my goodness, you run a jet sweep for a 3-yard loss. When I put out a tweet, I'm like, I think the Bengals knew that was coming before the Steelers called the play in the huddle. Then, there was times where it was like, okay, let's waste 2 plays and ask Kenny to convert a 3rd and 12. Seemed to also be thinking the penalties weren't helping him out. He did not get the support of the rest of his offense and, coaches and players that he did the previous week in the second half.
No, I mean, that you brought up the jet sweep. There was one wide receiver screen to Deontay Johnson that I felt was almost intercepted twice. It's like the Bengals knew exactly what was coming. And I'm not putting all this on Matt Canada either. There's a lot of people that probably will. I'm not. Kenny Pickett is, to me, he's still as advertised. He is a rookie quarterback. He was the first quarterback taken in the class, which was not hyped as a good one anyways. 20th overall. And yes, he was the most NFL ready, but that doesn't mean he's going to step in and just be able to go and win you football games. I would love nothing more than to see him do that. But I guess the question that I'm going to follow this up with, his stat line is his stat line. In your opinion, is Kenny Pickett making steps in the right direction? Brian, I'm going to ask you that question. Go.
Yeah, obviously, to me, he is. And here's the reason why. Once again, he did not turn over the ball this week. He did not turn over the ball last week. He did finish more drives than he has before. He threw a touchdown pass. Yeah, he only got 1. But the Steelers he did direct a Steelers offense that scored 30 points. And that's a big deal because we couldn't see them score 20. They finally got over that. They got to 20 last week. This offense scored 30. Kenny Pickett was not great. He was not good. He was barely average today. But I see signs of improvement every time he takes a snap, and that's what I like about Kenny Pickett. He didn't get help from Matt Canada, his offensive line, his receivers, and the defense. So you know what? A team loss. And that's what Mike Tomlin said in his press conference.
Well, and then people will always talk about like a play. Like there was one throw to Najee Harris where I don't even know where Kenny Pickett was throwing the ball. I mean, it wasn't even close. And then he lays out a beautiful one to George Pickens, which would have been a 57-yard touchdown. He would have walked in the end zone, and Pickens drops it. I mean, that's the kind of a verbal summation of the game. You have these players that are just seem like never really in rhythm and are in sync. David, what do you think? Is he making steps in the right direction?
I thought the first half was the best he's looked so far.
I agree with that.
In the first half. But the problem is you see that and you get excited, and then the second half did not follow up with what you saw in the first half, and it wasn't even close. And I'm saying I'd have to really dive into it to see what, because it was a combination of everyone. It wasn't just the offense was doing great except Kenny Pickett. It wasn't that the offense was doing great except the play calls were bad. The offense was doing great except the offensive line, or except they weren't getting penalties. It was all the things together in the second half. You can't say equally, but they all contributed. But I still feel that the first half was the best I'd seen from him. And if he can have amnesia about that second half, but learn from it and be able to play like he did in the first half and extend that longer into games, then you could. That's what you want to see moving forward next week and the week after.
Well said. Well said. Let's get to some super chats here. Tom Muir gives us $5. Said the Steelers defense isn't designed to be on the field for most of a half. The first half offense was able to move the ball. The second half, it was back to 3 and outs. No, there's nothing inaccurate about that statement. That absolutely is what happened. Brad Jewett, our buddy Brad, gives us $4.99. He said, has Kenny given either of you a wow, what a throw? And let's be patient and wait for his development. I haven't had either since he took over the job. Brian, what about you? What do you think? If you had one of those wow, what a throw moments and let's be patient and wait for his development, what are your thoughts?
I thought he had some throws to Pickens. He had one throw to Pickens. That first touchdown pass was beautiful. I thought. I kind of feel that there have been wow, what a throws. They've just been overshadowed. There was also a one of the turning points of the game too is when he overthrew Pickens and Pickens was all alone. And you could tell Pickens was one of those guys that's going to be buzzing in his ear. But yeah, I saw some stuff that I like.
Yeah. Dave, what about you?
I want to that one throw that Brian brought up about that he overthrew him. Was the reason the ball went over Pickens is because Pickens had to basically turn into a 360? Was it as much an overthrow, or is that he threw it on the wrong side of him from where he was going?
I think it's the latter.
Well, the reason I say I didn't know if it was an overthrow because I was afraid Pickens had to slow down so much in order when he got twisted around. So it was either needed to be shorter where he threw it or longer in the right spot. So these are the kind of things you see from Kenny. I get it. I know. I don't know that Kenny Pickett's the kind of quarterback that's going to be like, oh man, that was just an absolutely amazing throw. Sometimes it seems like the harder he tries to throw it, the more inaccurate he is. So I just don't know that he's that guy. He's definitely not that guy right now. I don't know if he will be that guy.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of things with Pickett today that I actually really liked. I thought that and there's people that saying he saw ghosts. I thought he manipulated the pocket well. I thought that he threw the ball well on the run. Yeah, there were some throws that the Pickens throw. I don't know why he threw it. He threw it to the sideline there, and Pickens was looking over the other shoulder. It's just a lot of this stuff. No one really knows. But let's get this super chat from Dave Dixon. Gives us $20. Thank you very much, Dave. We appreciate that. He said, Dave would love to see the stats on our success rate with the flea flicker. I can't help but think it's been a pretty lame for Pittsburgh. And then towards myself, Jeff, locked in winner for the podcast. The Pittsburgh alternate jersey is much cooler than Cincinnati's. Thanks, BTSC. Go ahead, Brian.
That's why he saw ghosts.
Because of those ghost jerseys.
Sea of white, yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know that I'll have to look and see if I can. I don't know if I can filter out Steelers plays that were flea flickers. I don't know how I would do that. But if I could, I would. I will. But I'll look into it. Okay, can I ask something about the flea flicker?
Sure.
Some people were upset. Why did they run to the line and run that play so fast? Well, I don't mind them running the line and running the play so fast. I didn't like that it was the flea flicker, that you rushed it. That might not have been the play to run to the line and go fast. Did you all think that there was a chance that maybe Pickens was bobbling that ball a little bit, and that's why they wanted to run the play so quickly?
Yeah,
no problem if they felt that was the case and wanted to run a play. I just don't think if you're trying to get to the line and run a quick play, I don't think the flea flicker was the play to do that.
No. If you want to run a quick play, you run a handoff up the middle to Najee,
which is what they did on second down, which lost 3 yards.
Right. Okay. let's not get too far down the
Yeah.
road. We'll get to Matt Canada
Yeah.
shortly.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the Steelers rushing attack. They
I
rushed
think
for
we had another one.
Oh, did I miss one?
Yeah, I got it here. It was after
Got it
that.
here. Okay. State of the Steelers gives us $2. He says, y'all think KPA will ever be the best quarterback in the North?
That's really hard to do. I mean, is Joe Burrow the best quarterback in the North, or is it Lamar Jackson? I would say it's Joe Burrow. But you might have a former league MVP that's not even the best quarterback in the division.
Go ahead, Brian.
A couple years ago when he was a rookie in 2020, people were talking about Joe Burrow not being the best quarterback ever in the division, and then he gets hurt. I mean, first overall, I mean, really stop with trying to, figure out a rookie quarterback and who he is until the start of his second season at this point.
Yeah, it's to me that these type of questions, and I just don't understand the reasoning behind it. Like, he's a rookie right now. Why am I trying to project his entire career? I'm just worried about right now. I want to know how he does for the rest of this season. I really don't. And this is going to sound stupid. I don't care if he's going to be the best quarterback. I hope he is. How do I know it's going to happen in 3 years? That's okay. Yeah. We're going to move on. Knight Rider 16 gives us $5. He said, why are we running our 2-point conversion play to Gentry in the middle of the field on a 2nd and long? He's talking about
I love it.
I had to read that twice before I understood what he meant. And then I'm like,
yeah, that's the inside shovel pass, which they've gone to that well so many times that you can tell that people see it coming. They see it coming.
And the thing is, I don't break down the tape of the Steelers offense like I'm someone trying to defend the Steelers offense. But are they tipping that off? I mean, I think they might be tipping off the jet sweeps based on personnel and formation. I think they might be tipping off that. I don't know, because I haven't broke it down, because I'm not spending hours breaking down the Steelers film, because I'm trying to be able to see what they're going to be doing. But that is a possibility. But, if that's your 2-point conversion play and you only run it for a 2-point conversion, trying to catch the team off guard, but they were all over it. They really were. That's what makes me think they're tipping it off.
I don't know. Okay, let's get to the running backs. Steelers rushed the ball for 102 yards. Najee Harris led the way, 20 carries for 90 yards, a 4.5 average. He had 2 touchdowns and a long run of 19, which was a scoring play. Kenny Pickett had 2 carries for 14 yards. His long run was 14. And Deontay Johnson 1 for 1, and Steven Sims brings that down with a -3 run. What did y'all think of the running game? Brian, we'll start with you.
It's a shame that there was an injury to Jaylen Warren, because I like what they were doing. Can you tell me how many yards Najee got again?
90.
Oh my gosh, he's just flirting with it. I think he's fired up. I think he's playing so much better. I felt on just one run, and it wasn't a long run. It might have been a run of 3 or 4, but he had that burst that we've been looking for a long time. So if I'm going to give anybody the best grades, and we're not giving grades, but I'm going to actually put Najee Harris on the, I hope you have him on the winners list. I mean, because I thought he looked pretty good.
Yeah. Dave, what were your thoughts on the running game?
Who I thought it was doing a great job in the first half, because I mean, if you look at it just by half, they had 71 yards in the first half on 14 carries, averaging 5.1. But the second half, it wasn't just the running game; it was the entire offense just couldn't really get going. I was surprised how much of a difference not having Mason Cole out there really seemed to make in the second half, particularly in the running game. So that's just that, and they got a little bit going there at the end when you were really trying to score quickly. But Najee Harris finally gets another first down run on first down. And then that's when the Steelers, they were in business, and then they get all the penalties to back them up. It was just they kept shooting themselves in the foot from one place to another. And so it wasn't even just the running game that wasn't getting going. It was just the entire offense.
What did you all think about the offensive line run blocking, though? Brian, go ahead.
I thought it was good. I thought he I mean, was it perfect? No. But I thought it was good. I like the combination with everything with the run game. It, like I said, it's just a shame that you didn't have that change of pace with Jalen Warren in there. I think that helps so much for this team. And I want to make a comment. I even though I try not to pay too much attention to the live chat anymore, I saw where Knight Rider just said something, and he said, "Yeah, I'm proud of Najee. He hasn't been doing the dancing." Now, just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, all we were talking, especially I think it was in the Philadelphia game, all we wanted to talk about was Najee's doing nothing but dancing. It's like he has his mojo back.
I'd agree with that. Dave, what were your thoughts on the offensive line and run blocking?
I thought they did a nice job. I mean, they there wasn't contact going on in the backfield on just regular runs, but I noticed that whether it was running or passing, the Steelers had more problems in the middle of the field in the second half, and I kind of chalked that up to the Mason Cole factor.
I agree with that. Yeah, I thought they ran the ball well enough. I didn't like some of the runs, and you mentioned like the inside runs weren't effective in the second half. So, yeah, Mason Cole, maybe he's a lot better. What was the word? What was the term that Mike Tomlin used when talking about Mason Cole? He's a what was it? I'll go. He said it in the press conference Tuesday. I just can't remember it. All right, Steel Dog 88 gives us $10. He said, "I hate saying this, but do you think Mason Rudolph would have made the throws and reads better than Kenny at this point in the season? Was Mitch the best starter to begin with? I know this is all hindsight." It is all hindsight. But Bryan, did you ever think maybe they should have just gone with Mace?
No. If really, look, when it comes to the quarterback, if Mason was the best player that they see each and every day under a bubble, on the practice field, wherever they are, then, he'd be out there.
I agree with that. Dave, what about you?
See, I don't agree with that. I honestly think at this point of the season, could the other two quarterbacks be making the same kind of reads and throws? Probably, possibly, most likely. But if this is going to be a season that you're going to struggle to get wins and you are part of this, although the Steelers never want to admit that they're rebuilding, if this really is a transition season, then you've got to get the growth from your young quarterback, and it's worth it to not have that with those other guys, because I don't know either way if it was going to make enough in the win-loss column. I don't think there's enough of a difference that would be the difference between wins and losses.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Evgeny Crosby gives us $5. He said, "This is say it with me, rebuilding year."
Yeah.
I know it's hard to say, especially for Tomlin, but it is what it is. It is. And that's something that I know Dave just said it. I know Brian's referred to it already. It is a year where they're trying to figure things out. They're trying to figure out if Kenny Pickett's the guy moving forward. They're trying to figure out what they have with some of these young players. It's a learning experience, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out the rest of the way. Okay, let's talk about the pass catchers now. The Steelers had 265 yards receiving. George Pickens led the way. He had 4 catches on 6 targets for 83 yards, a long of 33, and 1 touchdown. Pat Freiermuth had 12 targets, 8 catches, 79 yards, and a long of 27. Gunnar Olszewski had 3 targets, 2 catches. One of them was very acrobatic. 39 yards and a 19.5-yard average. Najee Harris, 4 for 6 for 26. Here is crazy. Deontay Johnson was only targeted 5 times, had 4 catches for 21 yards. And Jalen Warren, his only play, which is the one he got injured, was the 1 catch for 9 yards for a first down on 1 target. Zach Gentry had 2 catches on 3 targets. Steven Sims, no catches on 2 targets. Let's talk about the pass catchers. Bryan, go ahead. What do you think?
Man, there were some drops that, Pickens had that major drop. How many did Freiermuth have? He had a few that I'm not used to seeing that from him. I just really, I think that this is a good stable, and I really like where they're going. But one, they did not help out their quarterback as much as they could, just like the quarterback did not help out the receivers either. Once again, it's all of them, but DJ, I think more and more, it almost feels like he's being phased out. I know they're not, but it's just like I feel like he's an afterthought at this pick at this point.
Dave, what do you think about the pass catchers?
I think that there was like Najee Harris had the one play that it would have been nice for him to pull in. Pickens had the one that he didn't pull in there at the end. I feel overall that based on TV, it looked like Pickett had people to throw to. So I'm not saying that it was oh yeah, they were great, but I don't feel like it was an overall weakness. I felt that they did what they needed to do, but like I say, wide receivers on offense and secondary on defense is not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, no, Pat. Brian, you brought up Pat Freiermuth did have at least one pass that hit him in the hands. He normally catches it.
He almost caught it on the bobble.
We know Pickens had a drop, but ultimately I thought they had a good game. I did. I want to talk about the offensive line. The Bengals ended up with 7 quarterback hits of Kenny Pickett. He was sacked twice for 16 yards. How would you grade the pass protection, Brian? Or not grade it, but what do you think about it?
Man, I not very happy with the pass protection. I really feel like Pickett is running for his life. And look, I know this is probably knee jerk, but I've been thinking this the last 3 or 4 weeks after I've been on this man's bandwagon for probably a year and a half now. I'm done with the Dan Moore Jr. experience.
Already. Okay. Dave, offensive line is your wheelhouse. What would you grade the pass protection?
I mean, I didn't think it was I'm still judging the offensive line on how I thought they were going to be the super weak link going into the season. And everything that the Steelers offense had to do was working around the offensive line not being adequate. That is not who they are. Now, I'm not saying they had a great game, but I still don't think they were terrible in this game either. I feel there was times where Kenny Pickett had a lot of time. There were plays where he had a lot of time, and there were other plays where they didn't. They weren't overall super consistent, but I didn't think they were constantly getting him killed, because there was times where Kenny Pickett chose. I mean, the touchdown to George Pickens, he held it in the pocket and held it longer to get him open. And the other long play to Pickens was him in the pocket, taking a little bit more time because he actually had that time. So I don't agree with the assessment of them being that bad. Dan Moore Jr. Just had a phenomenal game last week. He just didn't have that again this week.
Yeah, it just seemed like, again, it sounded like a broken record. The tale of two halves. First half, they did their job. They did well enough. In the second half, they started giving up pressures. They started, the pocket started collapsing a little bit earlier than it was in the first half. So let's finish up the offense, though, talking about the coordinator. Brian, you are a harsh critic of Matt Canada. How did you think the game went in his regard?
There were signs of life, but in the end, you know what happens? He gets too cute. And this is a team that cannot get cute. They have to have an identity of keeping it going. A 3-point lead at halftime for this team was a bad thing for the offense, because the offense, comes out and they come out stupid. They just come out, let's be cute. Let's do that. I mean, there was way too much. The kind of stuff that he's calling is for a team that is much better than this. A team that needs to get to the basics and, just learn a few things. They need to be elevated to get to this cute stuff. They need to reach a certain level before they can start more of this stuff, because this is for a team that is polished, and this is not a polished offense. So I hate all the cute stuff, and I'm going to keep on saying it. Cute, 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 cute. Stop it.
Okay. Dave, what are your thoughts on Canada? The coordinator, not the country.
I didn't have any problems in the first half, but yes, I can give you my thoughts on both.
I think that'd be a better show at this
Why?
point?
Why'd you say that to me and not Bryan? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
It's a good thing he did it. I'd still be laughing.
I'll say this: if something would have happened to the Pittsburgh Steelers, let's say they get the onside kick, they actually throw a touchdown pass, and they go ballsy and they go for the 2-point conversion to win it rather than go to overtime, and they win the game. I'm still going to be critical of Matt Canada and the first 25 minutes of the second half, because it was not good there. You were not. It's not an easy thing to put a rookie quarterback in a good situation, and you definitely can't put him in a bad one. I mean, my goodness, it's like, oh, let's run a rushed flea flicker that really had no chance for him. Then you hand it off and lose 2 yards, and it just seemed too many times. It was like, all right, we'll finally let Kenny do something on third down and see if he can bail us out. That can't be your philosophy. I like that it's not just, the safe play calling, make sure you don't use yards on first down like we saw before the bye, which was frustrating. But I'm still saying it's better than what we saw before the bye, but this was not last week. Because last week I felt like with the extra week off, they were ready to go. And this week you just didn't have it. So I'm not laying it all there. There was parts where it was fine, but there was also parts where it wasn't. And those were the parts that cost the game.
Yeah, again, I'd really try to pump the brakes on blaming a coordinator when we're not privy to so much information that is necessary to criticize that player. We don't know if Kenny Pickett's changing the play. I mean, think about some of the miscues that happened that are not on the coordinator. Kenny Pickett setting up for a draw, and Najee Harris does not see the draw.
Yeah.
And he runs forward. He's handing off to no one. He keeps the ball and throws it to Pickens, ineligible man downfield.
Which was not the lineman's fault on that.
Right.
One.
No, it's not. But it's one of those situations where is that on the coordinator? No, that there was someone didn't hear the play in the huddle, or the play wasn't communicated properly. But whatever the case is, we don't
wide
know,
receivers jumping off sides.
Again, Deontay Johnson. Yikes. Yeah.
Okay. What was the false start on Kenny Pickett?
That's what I wanted to know.
I didn't see what it was when he did. I have to go back and watch a replay.
They never showed a replay or anything like that, but I was curious about that too. But let's get the super chat on the screen here. Andrew Palladino gives us $9.99. Said, I'm not as down on Kenny as others. Look at the playbook he's dealing with, the wasted plays when running on second and short. This is a Canada problem. Inexcusable second half. Get rid of him. This is something I mentioned on my Let's Ride podcast, and we'll go into a break on this. And that is for those people that want this guy gone. And I understand that most, if not all, want him gone. This is what you want. You don't want the Steelers offense turns it around and starts putting up 30 points every week. Guess what? They're not going to get rid of him. They're going to keep him around. I guarantee it. And the Steelers offense, somehow, some way, with all the criticism we just talked about, put up 30 points. They put up 30 points. I don't care if one of the touchdowns came in garbage time. They put up 30 points for the first time this season. Signs of life, and yet they surrender 37. We'll talk about the defense here coming up after this break. We will be right back on the audio side after a word from our sponsors. On the YouTube and Facebook side, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. All right, Steeler fans, we are back and we're talking defense now. This is a weird one to talk about for me based on the fact that, I don't know, it felt like the Steelers defense did great, and then they give up 37 points and 3 touchdowns to P. Ryan. I don't even know his first name, but his last name, P. Ryan. Just really, really bad stuff. Let's just talk about in generalities. What do you all think of the defense? Bryan, we'll start with you. We'll stay in the order.
Well, first thing first on Samaje Perine. Is it Perine? Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Perine. I don't know.
He was tearing them up before Joe Mixon left. So there was somebody asking TJ Watt at the game. It's like, hey, were you guys just not ready for Samaje Perine because Joe Mixon went out? No, that's a dumb question. Now the guy beat him. The guy beat him. The rush defense was not good. Not at all. And I tell you what, they tore him up. And if Mixon was in there, it would have been worse.
Yeah. Dave, what were your thoughts overall about the defense?
There was times where they looked the part, and there was times they did not. I mean, it was a nice deflection by Spillane for the interception. That was huge. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm going to stop and talk about this for a little bit, because it's something I talked about on the Last Minute Thought podcast that came out this morning, and that was, look at how the Steelers managed the end of the first half, because they've mismanaged it against Cincinnati in the past. You know, Cincinnati was smart. When the Steelers were down there getting close, they were calling timeouts to make sure they had enough time. And then the Steelers scored a touchdown, and you know, Cincinnati has plenty of time because they scored a touchdown. And I get it. And it's not that the Steelers called timeouts when they shouldn't have, which is what they've done in the past. But the Steelers got the stop, got the turnover, and got the field goal right before the half. The Steelers did to the Bengals what I was afraid the Bengals were going to do to the Steelers. And that is have finish strong, one score, maybe two, like the Steelers had two scores in the last 2 minutes, and get the ball to start the second half. So that was really something. And so part of that was set up by the defense with the takeaway. TJ Watt pulling in that interception was great. But when the Steelers, when they got those big plays, that's when they stopped Cincinnati. But otherwise, it was just a methodical beat you. It seems like it's like if Arthur Millette was on the field and they were throwing a pass, they were throwing it where he was going to be. Before it had been Robert Spillane a lot. This time it seemed like they went after Millette, like almost like they knew that their wide receivers were bigger and taller than him, and he wouldn't be able to bring it in. So I don't know I can't even remember what the question was, though, if I even answered it.
I think it was just general thoughts on the defense. Yeah. And that's fine. That's fine. And this Steelers defense, the big play was an issue. When you think about these long plays. Okay. So not in the running game, passing game. T. Higgins, long reception of 33. P. Ryan, 29. Trenton Irwin, whoever that guy is, 32.
Brought up off the practice squad.
Nice. Tyler Boyd, 27. Joe Mixon, 24. Hayden Hurst, 21. I mean, these are big plays. Big plays in the passing yard. T. Higgins has 148 yards on 9 catches, 13 targets. And like I said, P. Ryan had 3 touchdowns himself. So while everyone wants to pile on the offense and everyone wants to say, oh, man, the offense stinks, they can't do anything, on the night that they put up 30 points, the defense surrendered 37. And it was something that Mike Tomlin talked about in his post-game press conference, where this is not the first time he's done this either. I think that what happens is that Mike Tomlin has a super high expectation level for his defense. And if they don't live up to that standard that he set for them, then it's on them. And people was like, how can they not blame the offense? The offense didn't do anything in the second half, but the defense didn't really help him out. I mean, yeah, they did. I'm not going to say they didn't help him out, but at some point, you got to hold them to field goals. But
that's exactly what Coach Tomlin said. Yep.
Right. Yeah. And that's bend, don't break. They broke. They gave up 37 points. So let's get specific here. Let's talk about the pass defense first. Joe Burrow, 24-39 for 355 yards, 4 touchdowns, was intercepted twice, sacked twice for a 104.1 rating. The Steelers, from a pass rushing standpoint, they had the 2 sacks. Highsmith and Watt split that sack. So that's half for TJ, half for Alex. Cameron Hayward gets the other. Quarterback hits, the Steelers are registering 7. But again, they got gashed through the air. Big time with big plays. Early in the game, they were targeting tight ends, but mainly the running backs in the flat, and they were winning those battles repeatedly. Let's talk about the passing defense first, Dave. Go ahead.
Oh, me first.
Yeah, go ahead. You guys mixed it up on the screen. Sorry.
Sorry, I had a cough.
Yeah, the passing defense, it was just, it just wasn't complete. You didn't see much or hear much of Minkah Fitzpatrick because Joe Burrow's not stupid. Yeah. I think they stayed away from him. Just to let T. Higgins do what he did, he just turned into the Jamar Chase. So that was pretty disappointing to have, that kind of performance where they just kept constantly getting those chunk plays, like you said. I mean, you listed them off. That my goodness, how many different players was it? 2, 4, 6 different players had longs over 20 yards. And that doesn't even include the ones that other plays that they had over 20 yards that just wasn't their longest.
Right.
Like P. Ryan had 2 29-yard receptions. So the Steelers did well against the run, but they just gave up way too many chunk plays on the pass.
Bryan, thoughts on the pass defense?
All right, I've got many thoughts on this. First of all, let's call him Mr. T. Higgins, because I pity the fool who thinks that they could cover this guy, especially today, because they weren't able to. Sorry, I had to. Here's a question. And before I ask the question, I'm disappointed in myself because I was the entire preview and all this week. I'm like, Minka Fitzpatrick shouldn't play because he could hurt himself even more. Well, what I missed was the fact that, first of all, here's my question. Did Minka Fitzpatrick play today?
Yeah.
Was he on that field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He shouldn't have been. He became a liability because he couldn't do anything. He was limited. And so I'll honestly say that, yeah, maybe I was right, but I was right for the wrong reasons because I was thinking, hey, he might do more damage to himself. Yeah, he probably did damage because he was less of a player today. I just don't think he had any impact. Were there some nice plays? Yeah, there were some decent plays. I'm starting to really like Levi Wallace. I'm liking Levi Wallace a lot more. I'm sure he was a liability in some cases, but he does make some plays. All I'm going to say is that, yeah, this was not a good defensive effort whatsoever, especially rushing the pass. Rushing the pass, they probably did the best there. But the defending the rush, terrible. And my gosh, they let all these receivers run all over him. It was not a good day for the secondary or for the pass defense.
No, you're right. And Oral Richards gives us 5 Canuck bucks. I think that's what it is. And he said Spillane should not be the third down linebacker. He's too slow. I felt like today they mixed it up a little bit. Miles Jack was in coverage some. He got abused as well. So maybe it's just an inside linebacker problem. I don't know. Devin Bush had a couple nice plays, but he also was exposed at times. It's a tough spot. And this is one of the things where I know a lot of fans always roll their eyes when they hear Mike Tomlin say, hey, I tip their cap to them, meaning the opponent, whoever the opponent is. There are some times where you have to say they schemed that up perfect. The way they set it up, they got the matchup they wanted. Now, you might say that they have someone that's on the field or they could have someone on the field that is better in that situation, and I get that. We'll see. We'll see what this 3 safety package looks like. That we did see that on more than one occasion on Sunday in Week 11. But yeah, let's talk about the rush defense. That's a little bit of a bright spot. The Bengals rushed for 62 yards on 24 carries for a 2.6 yard average. P. Ryan led with 11 carries for 30 yards. Joe Mixon 7 for 20, and then Travion Williams 2 for 7, and Joe Burrow 4 for 5. From a rush defense standpoint, they didn't need to run the ball. But Dave, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it was fine. It was. Yeah. I mean, it's they held the Bengals under their average rushing, and it was under the average of what the Steelers give up in a game. So, I mean, in all, that was not the problem. The problem was letting them get big chunk plays in the passing game.
All right, what about you, Bryan, with the rush defense?
Wow, boy, was I wrong. I thought the rush defense was pretty. I thought they were getting torn up.
Oh no, they're good.
They're getting torn up on screens. And,
yeah, it was the running backs in the passing game.
Yeah,
that's what you're thinking of.
But
that tore them up.
Seemed every time there was a running back with the ball, I just got lost in all of that. I must have been like hitting the zero sugar Dr. Pepper too much because that stuff is probably going to affect me more than alcohol would. But I mean, I just got lost in that. So when I said earlier, I retract that, and I do apologize. Yeah, the run defense was pretty good.
Yeah, but their 2 running backs had 94 yards receiving on 7 catches and 3 touchdowns. That was the issue. It was defending the running backs in the passing game.
And Tyler W. gives us $5 as a perfect segue into his comment. He said, when running backs tear you up on short passes, that's the same to me as bad run defense.
See, that it's not. It's not. Because to me, your run defense is really you're looking at your defensive your interior defensive line. And I mean just your overall front 5 or 4 if you're in sub package. When it comes to the running backs getting the ball in the passing game, that's generally on your linebackers. So what they were doing, if you think that's brilliant, and that's what every team should do against the Steelers, because, I mean, if you were watching on TV, they were just gushing over the Steelers front 4, even though they play a 3-4, it would be a front 5, but as we know, they don't play it very often. But that's what you do if you want to get your running backs involved. You have to get them away from the Steelers' defensive front. So that isn't to me, that's not the run defense, because the guys that stopped the run defense were in there stopping the run.
I see that point for sure. Occam's Ox gives us $19.99. Said, yo, fellas, I know that I definitely haven't tipped much during the season. Losing seems to tighten the wallet. You guys do great work. Have some money. Thank you, Occam's Ox.
Hey, with that,
that's my favorite super chat so far.
Yeah,
no offense to the other ones.
Now, with that, Occam's Ox, we are going to party like it's 1999 thing.
Oh man,
that was a good one.
Wait a second, the Steelers were bad in 1999 too.
Yeah, they weren't good.
Yeah,
weren't good. Okay. Anything to add about the defense? Brian, go ahead.
Let's next week maybe hope it's better.
Yeah. See,
Dave?
That the reason it's crazy, because to me the offense was the team that had the opportunity. I mean, come on, they played renegade. They got them to jump. The fans got them to jump off sides. I mean, that's the players are the first ones that are going to admit that was on renegade, that 5-yard penalty. They gained 3 yards after that. They punt. The Steelers get the ball in Bengals territory, and they can't even get a field goal. So even when it's complementary football. When the defense comes up with that big stop, you've got to at least get the field goal. When the defense comes up with the turnover, the offense needs to put 6, then 7 on the board, is what you ultimately need to do. They weren't complementing each other. But if you were to tell me coming into this game that it was going to be a 37-30 game, I thought you'd be crazy, because I'm like, maybe the Steelers could score 30, but I was so high on this defense after last week. I really was. But I don't want to think that Minkah Fitzpatrick's the problem, but man, the secondary's played well when he's been out. But I don't think he's the problem. Are they relying on him too much? I'm not really sure what's going on. But I mean, I thought things were much more sharp last week. I mean, I still can't believe the effort they gave in Tampa. But Minkah's just so good. It baffles me. I don't know what to say about that. But the defense, I thought, was going to be what carried this team. And 37 points. I mean, come on. 3 of those points was the offense going for it on 4th down, not getting it. The Steelers not even giving up a first down and giving up a field goal. But still, that's 34 points. You're not going to win with that.
Yeah, 34 points, and there were no turnovers, so there wasn't a situation where, a Pickett interception takes him down to the 2-yard line, and then you're stuck behind the 8 ball. Like, that didn't happen. All right, let's get Justin Bozeman. He gives us $4.99. Mason had a higher QBR through 5 games than Kenny. Where are all the people saying he's not the guy and running him out of town? Bring the same smoke. I don't know. Was there a Hall of Fame quarterback waiting in the wings after an injury? I don't know. We're getting into fan narratives, and that's a slope I don't want to go down tonight. We'll put it that way.
Oh yeah, because that's what we get to do all offseason.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Mason from 2019?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Second year Mason, even though he hadn't played, but second year Mason. Yeah. All right, let's do some final thoughts here about the game. I don't think I missed anything. There's really not much else to talk about. I'm going to throw it to Brian first. Brian, what do you think?
All right, well, you know what? We've got to understand it's been since 2003 since we have felt this dismal. We've kind of felt this way in 2019, but then you kind of felt like, all right, wait, They're 8-5 at one point, and maybe they could go ahead and make a run with Duck Hodges. We thought that in 2019. We always get hope. Now this is different because your Hall of Fame quarterback is gone, and yeah, I was one of the ones blaming Ben Roethlisberger last year. I get it. It's a process. Teams go through this, so I don't really have much to say, but channel my inner Dusty Rhodes when I say, we're suffering hard times, baby. Hard times. 30 years on the job. They give you a watch and say, a computer took your job, daddy. That's how I feel right now.
That's good stuff. All right.
Okay.
Dave.
As bad as his Yinzer is, that was good. That was
really good.
That was really good.
So,
I a tip of my cap. I won't take it off. And
can we on bad language, instead of trying the bad Yinzer, just do Dusty Rhodes? It would be a million times better.
Yeah.
So
all right. Challenge accepted.
Yes.
But bad. Hot times, man. Hot times.
Yes, that's a million times. That's so much better than your Yinzer.
Oh yes.
A programming note: bad language has now been changed to hard times.
I would be okay with that too.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. Final thoughts. Go ahead.
I was hoping that the Steelers could get things turned around after the bye, and I said, man, if they could go 4-0 would be great, but even 3-1 in the third quarter, which to me is the 4 games coming out of the bye. Now, guess what they have to do? They got to win the next 2, and they could still feel like. And when I say turn around, we're not talking about that P word. We're not. Yeah, we're not talking about that because this isn't even about that. I mean, I want to see the Steelers playing better football because even if you're not in the postseason, you can roll into the offseason with stuff to build on. And that's what ultimately this is with the Steelers. And I mean, if they could somehow make the postseason, that would be great. But I mean, they basically have to win out now. But that's not what's important. The next 2 games, I'm like, wow, if they could still go 3-1 in the third quarter, they could really make some strides going into those last 5 games to where you could say, hey, maybe some things fall right. And you end up, like I said, I like when they do the graphics and you still see that the Steelers are in the hunt and have a chance. That'd be great to still see that going on around Christmas. But that's just kind of what we want as fans. This team's just got to get better. And as I said before, play complementary football. When the defense puts the offense in a good spot, come through for them. When the offense puts the defense in a good spot, come through for them. That's what ultimately needs to happen a little bit more. Man, I wish the Steelers had 2 weeks before every game because I think they could do a great job with everything, but that's just not how it works in the NFL. But they do get an extra day going into the next one, and we'll see how that turns out.
Wilson Pava gives us $4.99. He said, "More bad impressions, please. A hell of a lot more fun than the second half." That's the truth. I was so engaged in the first half. It was so much fun. I mean, it was back and forth, but that second half was just, oh gosh, awful.
But you're right. But look at how long it lasted to where you're like, if they can get it figured out, they can win this game.
Yeah.
It lasted at least 20 minutes or right around there. I mean, through the Renegade and then getting the ball back and then not doing anything, but ultimately putting them deep. You felt like all that time, if they could just get it going on offense, they could win. And they, when the offense squandered the opportunity again, then the defense gave up the long drive, and that was it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my second final thoughts.
There you go. He did it for me. That's fine. Next week this week itself is going to be a different week with Thanksgiving coming up. The Steelers preview is probably going to be postponed until Saturday or Sunday. One of those days. The Steelers don't play till Monday night. So with the primetime game, I don't know who you have on the Monday night post-game show. Brian might. We'll
figure that out this week.
Yeah, but I am going to make a call, and like we talked about, we're going to have, if it's okay with you guys, I think the preview should be next Sunday night. There's no reason for you guys to be on Thursday night. We'll go ahead and have a Q&A. Not sure who all is going to be there. I'll be there.
Enjoy your holiday.
Yeah, well,
everybody.
have fun, enjoy your holiday. Tryptophan bad is really fun too, so get ready for that.
It's Dusty Rhodes time. That's very lethargic Dusty Rhodes. So
a computer took your job, Daddy.
All right, I've had enough.
We've got to laugh. We've got to laugh.
We do, yeah. When things are bad, you got to laugh. All right, folks. Thanks for joining us. For all you that were watching live on YouTube or Facebook, make sure you check us out on our audio side. Wherever you get your podcast, search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. You'll catch my Let's Ride, Dave's Stat Geek, Brian's Bad Language, and a bunch of other shows. You don't want to miss any of it, so check us out there as well. We'll be back next week after the Week 12 game against the Colts. See you later.
Everybody else gets a little tight.